Hey, podcast listening people, welcome to another episode of the B2B Mentors podcast. And of course, I'm bringing the heat for you today. And we're here really at no cost to you, bringing you top experts, marketers, mentors, people I look up to, built relationships with. And, one of the most unique ones today, the nonprofit prophet is with me, the mutual friend of the shark himself, Kevin Harrington. Which is actually how we got connected. And of course, it's easy to connect when you're at dinner and you have a little bit of vodka soda, a little tequila, a little bit of delicious steak from Rococo going on. But again, guys, this is free to you. So do us a tiny favor, costs you literally nothing. Minimally like this, comment on it, share it. If not for you, I guarantee you there's someone else in your network that's going to get great value out of this. And of course, you can find the podcast on all your favorite apps. Now, you want to know about Matt George, who is the nonprofit prophet. He's a 3X best-selling author. One of his books right here, The Nonprofit Prophet, and executive leadership coach at Harvard Business School, TV host, speaker, 30 years as president and CEO in the nonprofit field. And Kevin Harrington, the original shark from the hit television show Shark Tank, calls Matt George the nonprofit CEO of our lifetime. And I literally spent an hour with this guy. I'm like, holy crap, this dude's really impressive. I, immediately got his numbers. Like, we got to do a podcast and talk about this. So, Matt, welcome, man. Good to see you.
Connor, I appreciate it. I'm excited to be on here. I'm doing a few of these this week, and this is the one that I've got circled on my calendar. So I'm fired up.
I knew it, because it's going to be the most fun, and we're going to bring the most value for everyone listening. And part of that, I think, for people to get some context as to Matt George. What was teenage Matt George doing? Were you, kind of like me, very interested, passionate about business, entrepreneurship, nonprofit world? Were you going in a different direction? Where were you at then, and kind of, a little bit of what led you to where you're at in your career today?
Well, it actually started at age 16. I had a friend of mine who was sitting next to me one day in school, and the next day he was gone, and he passed away from cancer. And it was the kick in the gut. It was the first time somebody like a friend that had passed, and I really didn't know how to handle it. And I knew that his family needed money. They didn't have a lot of money. I know they were not only sad, obviously, because their son had passed and had battled cancer, but then you have to pay for a funeral. So I decided, I was a tennis player growing up and through college. And I decided that I was going to do a tennis marathon and raise money for this family. I did. I raised $3,500 at age 16. And little did I know that handing them that check felt like $1 million, and it catapulted me to raise money every year since then for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. And where in those early years, were you focused on cancer? Were you focused on other areas? Were you just kind of connecting with the community? By the way, where did you grow up in Illinois? Like your home roots were there back then as well?
I was born in Indiana, but I grew up in a small town called Danville, Illinois, and it was a great town growing up. And once I experienced that loss of a friend with cancer, going into college and going into the University of Illinois, I started raising money for kids with leukemia and scholarships for nurses on oncology. And next thing you know, I was 18, 19 years old. I called Walter Payton, Sweetness, the greatest Chicago Bear of all time, and convinced him after 13 calls, I was very persistent, to come to Champaign, Illinois, where I was in school, and raise money. We ended up raising a ton of money. And I realized that I was pretty good at it at a young age, even though I had no clue what I was doing. But I was good at leveraging. I was good at leveraging power and leveraging celebrities early on, leveraging athletes, and I really used that platform of athletes and celebrities to raise money for the rest of my career. Walter,
Is the young kid, how are you getting these athletes, these celebrities to like, pay attention to you, to even, get involved? I feel like
well,
so many people have tried to do that too, but there must have been something unique that you're doing to get the attention of celebrities. Because at the end of the day, you could have the best cause in the world, but if you don't have, if it's not branded, whether you're in business, whether you're a nonprofit, if you're not branded, celebrities help to do that. What helped you to do that?
I think it was persistence. And it was back when I did this, I didn't have a computer. There were no cell phones. It was, you dial up Walter Payton's foundation. I'd leave a message. I did it 13 straight days. Next thing you know, I pick up the phone and he goes, "Is Matt George there?" And I'm 19 years old. And I said, "This is him." And he said, "This is Walter Payton. You're one persistent son of a gun." And I told him what I wanted to do. He said, "Drive up to Chicago. I'll give you 30 minutes." It ended up being 2 hours. And he was as cool as can be. It really kind of launched my career unknowingly, like I said. And it led to a friendship at age 17, 18 with Jim McMahon, Dan Hampton, all the Bears of the 85 Bears. I became close to all of them, still very close to them. And they have supported me in my efforts my whole career.
What's going through your mind at this time? You're like, this is it. This really is my calling. Or were you still kind of uncertain? Like, hey, this is great. What am I really going to do when I grow up? Like, or did you really instantly recognize this is it, baby? This is what I'm charging, towards. This is my mission for life.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting, Connor, because I didn't know, but I knew how I felt. So I knew I was making a difference, and I loved being in a way. I loved helping people and loved being loved at the same time. It was just fun. It was so cool to be able to raise money for people and fulfill other people's missions. And I just kept hearing, it's just so hard. It's so hard to do this. It's so hard. And it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't hard for me. And what came of that was a 30-year career of always being a CEO. I was never not in that position. I never, even right out of college. And I think that is an interesting story within itself. I always tell people, in nonprofit boards, you report to a board if you're the CEO, and they're all volunteers. And so in my whole career, I never had a boss, so to speak. I was, even though I worked for an entity, for a nonprofit, I never really had a boss. And so I had to really learn a lot and have a lot of mentors and all the way throughout my whole career. And I still have mentors with Kevin and Mark Victor Hansen of Chicken Soup for the Soul and others. I just have I believe in mentors. I need people around me to help me succeed. And I've always felt that way.
I want to dive into that. And of course, perfect fit for the podcast name, B2B Mentors. A quick story. I don't even know if we talked about this when we were hanging out the other week, but when I was 7 years old is when 9/11 happened. And what I did is, my parents kind of always encouraged me into entrepreneurship and business and all this. So I literally stole rocks from my neighbor's yard. I picked them out of my neighbor's yard and my yard, and they were just, like whatever landscaping rocks. And I painted them with, American flag symbols and peace symbols and all kinds of stuff. And I sold them at a motorcycle rally to raise funds for the 9/11 rebuild efforts.
Oh, wow.
And so it just like really, and I tell that story all the time when I talk about entrepreneurship, because it's always been the basis of what I believe entrepreneurship can be. And I've done Cans Around the Oval and March of Dimes and, all these things through Letter of Business stuff. Now, the thing is, in recent years, and this is why when you and I connect, I'm like, this is destiny, because this is where I really want to continue to improve in my life and get back into in my life.
Yes.
is, of course, the years come, you start a business that's for profit, you get busy, you get sucked into things, and you're like, it's the last thing I'm thinking about is how to go raise funds for an effort or get involved in a nonprofit. I'm just trying to survive,
Right.
over the years. And so, why is that? Why is it so difficult for so many to maybe stick with it? I'm sure many people in their younger years got involved in some sort of nonprofit. And so what do you find in that? Like, why is it hard for people to get involved, to stay involved? Is it easier than they think? Is it actually, can you use this selfishly to be able to grow your business, but give back and help people at the same time? I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So that's a great question. There's a lot of questions in that. That's one topic actually, because I'll use it to nonprofit employees. I'll start there. Nonprofit employees and volunteers and people on boards, they all have to be hooked or like the cause. And if you're not hooked and you don't give yourself a chance to get hooked, then you won't last in this business. And I'm going to give you an example. I was in helping cancer for years and then ran a children's home for 20 some years. And during that time, when I'd wake up every day and say, you know what, my job is to take care and fight for these kids and families that can't fight for themselves. So every day I woke up and I said, I'm going to change a life and save a life. That became my motto: change lives and save lives. But I was hooked. I've seen kids get shot and abused and stabbed and everything bad you can think. I've seen it, but I've also seen when somebody, not just me, but my team, I had 500 teammates, 500 employees, and we would sit there and you change a life every day. That's once you're hooked, then you're going to continue changing lives. What happens at an early age is you may get into something, you may do something great in college. Like I did a fundraiser, I was part of this or whatever it may be, raising money, but you're not hooked. You feel good and you check box and say, hey, I raised money for plastic and oceans and it felt great, but did it really feel great? And I'd argue and say, you did a good thing, you did a noble thing, but you were never hooked. And because you move on to the next thing, which is your job, or you want to be an entrepreneur or whatever it may be, people in our business only last if they get hooked. So what would happen is every 2 weeks at my agency, we would have a new employee orientation, and I would actually be the first speaker. And it would shock people because why is the CEO coming in and kicking everything off every Monday, every other Monday? And the reason why is this, because I was very blunt with people, and I would say this. HR does not like me saying this, but I'm going to tell everybody in here that it's your job to take care of the person next to you. It's your job to take care of the kids and families that we work with and for. It's your job to take care of the community, and it's your job to take care of yourself. And if you don't care about any of those, go to the mall and sell shoes, which is a fine profession to have. I'm not bashing it, but this job's not for you. So don't waste my time. Don't waste these kids' time. Go now. And here and there, I'd have people walk out because I don't want to hire people. I don't want people working that are going to sit here just to say it's a job. It's not a job. It's a passion. You have to have passion and compassion, and then it becomes a career. Once you, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get hooked in the first month. I had somebody kept coming to me and saying, Matt, you kept saying I'm going to get hooked. 6 months goes by and they came in my office crying. And I said, now I know what you mean. And I said, you can't control that. That's not you. That's just letting things happen. And that's what we do, is we change lives and save lives every day.
And we skip past this. I have so many things kind of bubbling up here, but why don't you brag a little bit? I mean, talk about. I'm giving you permission because of what you've done is so incredible, and I really want people listening to understand this. By the way, I hope you're picking up that a lot of these philosophies, how Matt ran as a CEO for a nonprofit, these are powerful skills for CEOs, or if you're a CMO listening to this and you oversee a team. So I want you to kind of pick up on those things as you're listening. Also, you put tens and tens of millions of dollars in the bank for this nonprofit and made it incredibly successful. Talk about that story. Just, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, really quick.
Yeah.
People really understand the level of scale at which you've done this before.
Well, first of all, people have to understand that we're a business. My first book, Nonprofit Game Plan, it talks about how a lot of people get into this business and they're in leadership positions and think they're programs. They're not programs. You're not working for a mission. You're working for cash. You're working to make money so then you can fulfill the mission. And if you don't have the cash or the revenue streams or the grants or the donations, whatever it may be, you will not have mission. So I've always run it like a business. And I think it's very important to run it like a business. The other thing was my specialty is fundraising. I've always truly believed that you can't control what you can't control, which is state funding, federal funding, grants. They may pull back one year. They may have a budget line item one year that changes. I would always raise money to make sure that we took those programs and could backfill them so they wouldn't affect our community and hurt people. So over the years, I would sit there and I'd have a strategy and a process put in place, which I still do with other nonprofits, to build an endowment, to build that cash reserve, that kitty, whatever you want to call it, and rainy day money over to the side, because sustainability in nonprofits is no different than sustainability in for-profits. And you have to be able to sit here and know that you're going to lose a contract in both for-profit or nonprofit. You're going to lose a revenue stream. You're going to lose a client. You're going to lose something along the way. But what happens is you're able to sit here when you raise money and you do it effectively and you do it right. You can sit here and know that you have a sustainable model as you move forward.
I think what happens, back to another time, thank you for sharing that. Back, just jumping back to another area here, your earlier years, you do a lot of stuff to give back through, a number of your other years while you're building your own career. You kind of put that on pause again. You're just trying to get your life in order and be successful and create that. And then you give back again, later down the road. I think part of that too is also there. And I know for me personally is a lot of the skepticism of nonprofits and the negativity that's around them. And I've personally, there's nonprofits I gave to for years, come to find out, 80-90% of everything doesn't even go towards a cause. It goes to the pockets of the executives, or they just misuse funds or something like that. And that happens. And there's good and bad, just like in business, just like in nonprofits. What is your advice for those who are looking for ways to get involved and to make sure that what they're doing is legit, it's verified? Do you have some markers to look for?
Yes,
whether you want to be involved, or you want to do fundraising, or you want to donate, or maybe part of your business model is tied in to another nonprofit organization. What's your suggestions on that?
A couple things. Number one, there's some vetting that you can do. You can go to a local United Way, and they have a vetting process for a lot of the nonprofits to be able to receive grants. So they check their financials, their board stability, their C-suite, salaries, everything, their programs, their outcomes. Outcomes are huge of programs. That's one piece. Another piece, if you're savvy with financials, is
so what was that platform again? What was that? Where to look at it?
Well, I'm going to get back to it.
Oh, sorry.
It's called GuideStar, but one of the things though that ties to GuideStar is the 990. So you can go to an entity like a United Way. That'd be number one. They do all the vetting. Online, you can go to a GuideStar where they have the public information of all 501c3s, which includes their 990s, which is their financial audit. And you can look at their revenue, you can look at salaries, you can do all the info, look at all the info that you're looking for. But you have to remember something too. I had somebody say to me one time, this one group uses a lot of their money for salaries. And I said, yeah, but who's going to provide the homeless youth programs? You have to pay salaries. You have to sit here and have good people frontline. The CEO, my job as a CEO was important, but the heroes of the agency are the front line. They're the ones that are on the street. They're the ones with the kids and the families. They're the ones looking at the foster care system and homeless youth and autism services and all of those array of services. You have to pay them, and they're typically underpaid. And so there's a lot of different ways to vet. There's also a lot of family foundations that they do a lot of vetting too. So if you live in a larger city and there's a family foundation there, you can get hold of them and ask if they know about anything about the agency. Lastly, and I think it's a big one, is on everyone's websites is typically the board members. Well, if a company like Truist Bank is going to put a VP or a president of the bank on this board, you can go to somebody at Truist and ask them what their role is and find out information through there. And you can do it also through sponsors. So if someone's holding a gala or a big event and the title sponsor is Truist or PNC or whatever it is, you can sit there and actually go to the event or talk to the people at the event and find out why they support that. Why, as a board member, do you support whatever agency it is?
And I think just like business, because I'm not opposed to salary, CEO or people making tons of money doing it. Like, it's a good thing. If you can, conscious capitalism is very good. What speaks to it, I guess, at the end of the day, and something to validate, is results, right? Results speak for themselves. So if you're looking at the cause, at the outcomes, if people are getting very hefty salaries and they're getting being blessed by this whole conversation. The all of that is fine and dandy. I think the results is what people really need to dig into. And it takes time too. That's why, I think CEOs and executives turn to you pretty often to be able to match those efforts for them and find where they can, allocate funds and get more involved with nonprofits. Because if, someone has to be an advocate for it. And there needs to be more Matt Georges out there. So I know you're out there creating more Matt Georges, but there needs to be a lot more out there.
I appreciate it. Nonprofits rely on boards. We rely on good, solid board members to help, not only for advice, for mentorship, for sponsorship, but really for me, I loved utilizing my board. I loved looking at the makeup of the board and saying, okay, I have an attorney here, I have a marketing person here, I have this person over here, and then actually going to each one of those board members and saying, I'm pretty weak in this area. I could get better. Can you help me become a better CEO in this area? And after all, and I had that mentality my whole life, and I actually became so well versed in like HR as an example that I probably could go get an HR job anywhere right now just because of the experience. And a lot of directors or CEOs don't have that mentality. They'll sit there and they'll sometimes go into this Groundhog Day mode where it's just the next thing, and it's we're about taking care of people or whatever it may be. It's more than that. You're getting paid to do the best job you can and be best in class. So my goal was always to have the number one nonprofit ever. That was my goal.
In pursuing that, what is like the biggest mistake that you think of today that was either great learning lesson, others who may be going into this arena as well can learn from you as a mentor? Hey, you should avoid this roadblock that's probably going to occur.
I think early on in my career, I didn't listen enough. And not to the board, but to my team. And so I always had an answer. Now I still always have an answer, but I've got 30 years and no hair to prove that I actually have, and a lot of failure. I failed 1,000 times. So I have all that now as positives. But early on in my career, I'd sit here and someone come in my office and I'd have an answer. And I was paid. I wasn't afraid to ever be wrong, but sometimes I needed to think about it a little more. I needed to listen to them, or I needed to listen to their solution and not think I have the answer to everything. I think that was one thing that I got better. I actually know when I became I'm 53 now. I became a really good CEO at about age 41.
Just the time, the practice, the steps took you to get there.
Confidence, knowledge, awareness, everything you can think of. I mean, everything in business that you can think of. I think I didn't hit my peak at 41, but I was probably I was on my way to the top of my game at age 41.
And that was making a pivot from telling, your versus asking the question of your team, of the board, of, other folks around you. Is that kind of the major pivotal?
That and actually being real with myself and writing down my 3 or 4 biggest weak spots.
Gotcha.
And so what I ended up doing is I did something kind of interesting. There are 4 banks, and there were 2 financial firms around here. I went to the 2 directors of the financial firms and the 4 presidents of the bank, and I asked for a 1-hour meeting. And I took in our financials and I sat down with each one of them and I said, if you're on a board, what are the first 5 things you look at on these financials? And I handed them a highlighter. Could you highlight them and then explain to me why you look at that? And it was something that actually changed how I looked at financials moving forward, because a lot of people, there's actually board members that still can't even read financials. I know that's not shocking, but to me, you should be, if you're on a board, you should understand what the business is. And so I thought to myself, I want to be able to do 2 things. As a CEO, I'm not going to rely on my CFO. I want to know more. And I want to be more knowledgeable in this business than anyone in that boardroom.
I heard someone say the other day, know where the bodies are buried.
Yes.
If because you get busy as an entrepreneur or CEO or whatever, and you don't know where all the bodies are buried. Always know where the bodies are buried.
That's exactly right. And be open to change and criticism. And I don't think people ever hurt my feelings. I had to think about some things here and there, but I have no problem. I mean, even to this day, I was with Kevin Harrington last week, and he told me he said something to me, and I thought, you know what, I'm doing that wrong, and he's right, and I have no problem with that. I'm actually glad that somebody cares enough about me to help me.
Most people aren't willing to face that pain.
Right.
To look it in the mirror, you know what I mean?
Right.
But just before we wrap up here, we mentioned also how most people run a nonprofit, not like a business, but as a program, for example. What are just maybe 2 or 3 other very core things that come to mind to make yourself wildly successful when raising funds?
Yeah. So to me, that's brand. So people will disagree with me on this, but I have a track record to prove it. People gave for the mission and for the name and for what we do and the impact we have in the community. But people also gave because of me. I knew that. And so I took advantage of that. And what I did was my theory is that we were the largest social service agency outside of Chicago in the whole state of Illinois. And we had cash, we had so-called leverage or power. If I really wanted to be like a for-profit, I'm going to take over all of these different businesses. There's some that I probably could have, but it's not the right thing to do. what I ended up doing was I actually thought to myself, I'm going to, at an early age, help other agencies raise money. And there's a funny story to this. I had a board member, and she didn't last long, to be honest with you. It's an unbelievable story. But she said to me, "Why are you raising money for 6, 7 other nonprofits in town?" And I said, "Isn't our mission to take care of people and families of our community? So if that's our mission and we're the leaders in that space, and I have that platform, isn't it my role and duty to help everybody else and pick them up?" And I did that for 25, 30 years. And so I ended up, and that is what branded me as the CEO in our area for nonprofits and in the state of Illinois and on. And that's what Kevin talks about all the time, is really just that it's that helping others mentality. And I truly believe it. I don't think you can, if you care about the community you live in, then I challenge you to do something better or more than what you're doing now to take care of that community. And even though I was in the business, I still did that. So I emceed or fundraised for 9 other nonprofits my whole career, 9, 10 a year at no cost.
So be branded, talked about that, run it like a business. I think something else is be willing to push back where you need to push back.
Yes,
Which I think you have a unique talent for that maybe other nonprofit CEOs just, wouldn't approach their board or someone, with a conversation like that. Like, we care so much. We know our product, our service, what we provide is so much more superior to anyone else. There's not a question you should even be thinking or looking outside. You should go all in 100% on this effort.
that's
That's
right.
what's made you successful. One last question here, and then I'll let you run, because I know you got to hop. But what is one thing just in the nonprofit world you've held as a long-standing belief for the last, however many number of years that you've maybe changed your mind on in recent months?
Hmm. I truly believe what's changing right now is the donor's mentality. And I really always thought that there's a lot of donors out there that give to a lot of causes. And what's happening right now, there's a trend of I'll give you just one quick example. If there is a person who is going to donate $1 million and they say, you know what, we're going to put 20 years ago, we're going to give 10 agencies 100,000. Now I'm going to give you one agency 1 million.
Mm.
And you better have your business tight. You better be ethical. You better have a good team around you, and you better have outcomes. So if I say I'm providing this for the community and you're not providing that, donors are more savvy and they will not give you money, and therefore you will be in trouble as an agency.
So the potential is bigger, but the potential for either more or absolutely nothing depends on your ability to run a tight ship. Now,
It's
can't
again,
get away. Is it more like even nowadays you can't get away with some of the negatives of nonprofits that you maybe in prior years people were able to get away with, maybe because of technology, social media, just the spread of communications from compared to even 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why crowdfunding has blown up so much. Is a lot of these nonprofits are sitting here saying, we need to find another avenue to raise money. And that's just a small piece of what your whole strategy should be. People would just say, hey, we've had this fundraiser for 30 years. We're going to do another fundraiser again this year, the same thing. People are having to be creative and not only run it like a business, but they have to sit here and change. And people don't like change. And the last thing I'll say is this: a lot of nonprofits do business like 20 years ago. It's very hard, and they're on a shoestring budget, even though that's not always true. but the mentality is that.
Mm.
So we will go to a Goodwill and get a desk. We're not going to go buy a new desk. But new people coming in, people out of college, younger people, they want to work at a best-in-class place. They're not going to work in a place where their desk is going to be 50 years old. And so you have to kind of tiptoe that fine line of how do you sit here and come of age, not only with our technology, but with our brand, our look, and our marketing. And that's what's changing more than ever. And the groups that do this nationwide and globally are the ones that are going to be here for many years to come. The other ones that don't will be no different, just like than any other for-profit business, is they're going to go by the wayside, and they're either going to have to dissolve, merge, or be acquired.
Amazing, man. I can't thank you enough for sharing, and couple things for everybody to take action on. First off, go get this book. And I believe Amazon, they can get it on Amazon, right? I was lucky enough to hang out with Matt George in person. He inscribed a personal note here for me. I won't show you, but it does start with, Connor, I love you. You're the best podcast host and show I've ever been interviewed on. So we'll go with that. Thank you for that endorsement, Matt George. And then anyone else as well on the mattgeorge.com. What can people expect to be able to get involved with you, work with you? Who are the right kind of folks to, reach out and maybe set up a time to speak with you?
Yeah, you can set up a call with me. You can go to my website, set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about your nonprofit, or I have a lot of board members that I work with, a lot of corporate groups. I do a lot of speaking, and I go in and assess your nonprofit and let me help you make it a go. And it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. So what do you have to lose? One, and I think too, if you're looking to get involved in nonprofit, if your company, your, larger organization, is that a good case to connect with you as well, Matt?
Yeah. And think about this. Everybody wants to live in a great community, no matter where you're at. And your goal is for your family or you to live in a great community. And the nonprofit space helps make great communities. And remember, it's not just social service agencies. Schools are nonprofits, hospitals are nonprofits, and churches are nonprofits. So there's a lot of employees that are in each one of your communities that are tied to nonprofits. The key, though, is to make money.
Do it. Reach out, go to mattgeorge.com, check out the book. Literally one conversation could change thousands of lives, even just one life, by taking action to do that. So there's no reason not to. Matt, can't wait to see you again here in a couple of weeks back in the Berg. And for the rest of you, by the way, stick around just so I forgot to mention the recording can upload and all that good stuff. So stick around for just one quick second when I end here. For the rest of you, hope you enjoyed this, found it as valuable, if not, incredibly useful for ways to come up with ideas, implement this in your business, implement this into your nonprofit efforts. Make sure you share this. Much love to you, my friends, and we'll see you on the other side.